Okay, welcome to video lesson 2.5b. This is part B of a three-part series. You just wrote your vocab from video part A. So now we are going to go through all the vocabulary and I'm going to give you examples of each of the vocab words. So take out your outline and let's take a look at examples of terms. And you should see a blank line on your outline. So what you're going to do is just copy what you see. If you have any questions in the margin, anywhere on your outlines, write questions down, and in class tomorrow we will answer all your questions. So an example of a term is, for example, the number 5. Another example is 2 times m, or you can call it 2m. Another example is just b. So you notice here in front of m we have the number 2, okay? That means we have the number m 2 times. Think of it as 2 times some number m. Here, since there's no number in front of the letter b, there's a 1. So it would be 1b or just b. So 1 times b or just b. Another example of a term is negative 8 times some number z. And finally, the last example is negative 2 times some number c, and then divide that whole thing by 5. Okay, so these are all examples of terms. And just like the previous video, pause this along the way anywhere you need so you can write your notes down and proceed forward. Okay, next we're going to do examples of like terms. So we have 5m plus 3m plus negative 6 plus 2. Okay, so take a second, write that down. Now, do you notice this term has an m? So if you look at your vocabulary for term, you have to have the same variable and the same power. So this is just 5 times m, or m to the first power, plus 3m. Those are like terms because they both have the same letter, the same variable. So we can add those two together to make 8 times m, or 8m. Okay, if you take a look at this, this is a constant. And so is this. It's a constant. It does not have any variable being multiplied or divided to it. So those are like terms. So what we can do is combine the yellows to get 8m, plus combine the greens to get 4. And our final solution is 8m plus negative 4. Our next word is an example of constants. Okay, so copy this example down. So we have 4b plus 6 plus negative 2b plus negative 3. Now, if you take a look, you see these parentheses around the negative 2b. Okay, the reason for that parenthesis, and even the other one around negative 3, is because we can't have an operation plus a sign saying, hey, we're just negative, we're not an operation. This is telling us to add on something. So to separate a sign and an operation, we put parentheses around the sign, not the operation. Okay, so we want constants. If you take a look at your vocab from video part A, constants are any number where there isn't a letter or a variable being multiplied or divided to it. And the only two numbers that don't have a letter being multiplied to it are 6 and negative 3. So that's our solution, 6 and negative 3. Those are our two constants. Okay, next we're going to take a look at an expression and find examples of coefficients. Okay, coefficients are, for example, copy this example, 2j plus negative 5j plus 2 plus negative 3j. Coefficients are the number that's being multiplied or divided to a variable. So if you notice, 2 is being multiplied to j, so 2 would be a coefficient. negative 5 is being multiplied to j, so negative 5 is a coefficient. It's not just 5 because 5 is negative. Remember, that's a sign, not the operation. 2 is not being multiplied or divided to anything, so that's a constant, not a coefficient. There's no variable next to this. And finally, we're adding on negative 3 times j, so negative 3 would be our coefficient. So in conclusion, the coefficients are 2 from 2j, negative 5 from negative 5j, and negative 3 from negative 3j. Okay, notice I'm not using equal signs because these expressions are not equal to these. We're just pulling out parts of the problem. So when you look at these expressions, you'll be able to recognize constants, coefficients. We can pull it together as we move forward into our equation chapter later in our school year. Okay, and remember, if a term is just a variable, for example, j or m or b or any letter to represent a number, the coefficient is always going to be 1. So for example, if I had x plus 4 and I asked for the coefficient, since there's only an x here, the number in front of x would be 1. So your coefficient, number in front of the variable, is 1. Okay? Let's take a look at the next page in your handout. And we're just going to combine like terms. So I have 3a plus 4a. If I take a look at my two terms, term 1 and term 2, notice the plus sign separated the two. They both have the variable a, and a is to the first power. So I am able to add the 3 and the 4 to simplify to 7a. Next, I have negative 12b plus 6b minus 4b. Okay? Please make sure you're copying this down in your notes. Once again, pause wherever you feel necessary. The first thing I'm going to do is, you see this minus? All right, as you remember from chapter 1, minus means to add the opposite. So minus equals add the opposite. So I'm going to rewrite that minus sign, making this a plus. Make this a plus, and then I'm going to make the 4b negative 4b. And it will look like this. Negative 12b, so that didn't need to change, plus 6b. I changed the minus to a plus, and I take the opposite of this, 4b, to negative 4b. And I just put a parenthesis around there to keep the operation and the sign separate. If you notice, all of the coefficients have a variable of b next to it. Negative 12 is being multiplied to b, 6 is being multiplied to b, and negative 4 is being multiplied to b. So what we're going to do is use our skills that we learned in chapter 1 and combine all three of these terms and multiply it to a b in the end. For example, negative 12 plus 6 is negative 6, and then negative 6 plus negative 4 gives us, I made a mistake there. So negative 6 plus 4 is negative 10b. Okay, my solution underneath is wrong. Okay, once again, if you have any questions, please jot them down anywhere on your paper next to this slide, and we will discuss it tomorrow. And here's our next example. Copy this down on your sheet of paper. And what I like to do is go through all the terms and figure out which ones are like. So 5a is like minus 6a plus minus 7a, because they all have the variable a, plus 3a. So as we get further into this chapter, not all the a terms are going to be next to each other like they are now. Then if you notice, minus 2 plus 7, those are constants, so they're like terms to each other. So what we're going to do first is rewrite the problem. I'm going to take these minus signs out and rewrite them as plus the opposite. So here we go. 5a, bring that down, minus becomes plus, so I take the opposite of 6a, which is negative 6a, plus 7a, plus 3a, make the minus a plus, so I'm going to flip the next integer to make it negative 2, then plus 7. So I'm going to take all my a terms, add them up, and I get 9a, and then negative 2 plus 7 is plus 5. And finally, the last example, we're going to do the same idea. Please make sure you're copying this down. Pause anywhere you need. I'm going to take all these minus signs. This first sign, students always ask, is that a negative or is that a minus? Well, if I read it, it says negative 3. So that's a sign, not an operation. To rewrite, we get negative 3. This minus becomes a plus. The opposite of 4 is negative 4. Minus becomes a plus. The opposite of 6 is negative 6m. The opposite of minus is plus negative 5a, and then minus becomes plus negative 7. So I'm going to take all of my like terms. So negative 3 is being multiplied to m. There's another m term here. So those are my only two coefficients that are like terms. My like constants are the negative 4, the negative 5, and the negative 7. So I'm going to take the two yellows and I'm going to add them. Negative 3m plus negative 6m. You can skip that next line if you wish, is negative 9m. And now I'm going to take the blue and I'm going to take a look at negative 4 plus negative 5 plus negative 7. And since they're all negatives, they're like signs, I'm going to add them up and get negative 16. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.